Hey gang, Ronan here. Welcome on back to the Cade and another episode of Suckerpunch Sunday, the series where we take a deep dive into a classic fighting or fighting platform-based game from the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th generation. And for this week, because the 90s was such an interesting time video game-wise, because not only did we have the last really great console wars between Nintendo and Sega, but Sega was doing everything they could to pull out the stops and get over on Nintendo, specifically in comparison to the Genesis / Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo. Then, of course, one of the big ticket items that they released to coincide with that console was the SegaCD system. And the idea around the SegaCD was that you were going to have games that had better graphic fidelity and better overall presentation than what you could currently get in a 16-bit cartridge, because this was one of the last vestiges of the cartridge era. Yes, we had the Nintendo 64 that had cartridges, and oh my god, I just saw an arm float down into the water. But this was really the final death knell for that format of construction for video games. From here on out, it was pretty much CDs through the 32-bit era, then DVDs going into the PlayStation 2 era.
To ensure the protection of all mankind. In this continuum, mankind shall fade from existence unless a great change takes place. I am the instrument of this change, for I am the eternal champion. The downfall of man is traceable to the sudden deaths of key individuals that were meant for greatness, but were struck down before their time. I have used much of my power, traveling through time, gathering up these doomed souls moments before their untimely destruction. I will hold a great contest, and I will return the victor to fulfill their rightful destiny and to save mankind from the forces of chaos and ruin.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to play a game that was highly promoted back in the day, but ended up being one of the more maligned fighting games of this generation. We are going to play Eternal Champions,
50,000.
and this is a game that I remember seeing. I didn't see it so much in game stores when it came out, but I very much remember seeing it in quite large quantities in my local game shop, my used game shop, going into the early 2000s and up until that shop unfortunately closed down around, I remember, I think 2015. And if I ever saw a game that was in those sorts of quantities on the shelf, I knew it wasn't a good one. Now, this game came out in 1993, was developed by Sega, was released on the Genesis through the SegaCD in December 1993, and then was released in Japan and Europe in 1994. And what we're going to do over the course of the next 25 minutes or so is we're just simply going to see how far we can get in this game. Now, as you see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 13 characters we can choose from. And one of the things that was struck straight away about this game in its reviews was, while it was highly touted by Sega, and upon its initial release was given a 97% by Mean Machine's Sega publication, and they said, and I'm quoting them directly here, it's at least as good as Street Fighter II, and Electronic Games Magazine gave it a 91%. But that was where the high comparisons ended. So let's pick, I mean, I don't know anything about these characters, so we will pick this guy. Now, the whole idea of this game is that an omniscient being known as the Eternal Champion predicts that mankind will soon fade from existence due to the untimely and unjustly deaths of key individuals throughout history who were destined for greatness. And what they will do is he grabs these individuals from different points in time, and they will all compete in this tournament, and whoever wins it will be able to go back into history and be the one who essentially sets mankind on the course they need to be on to survive. Now, this is actually the sequel, Eternal Champions Challenge from the Dark Side, which is why there are more characters in it. I wasn't able to find the original version of Eternal Champions, although if you're looking for good copies of games to play, the Internet Archive now has got so many of them, it is insane. But as you can see, this is very much got a combination of Street Fighter 2 and I would say even a little bit of Mortal Kombat to it. If you look at kind of the way the background is, and that Raven here, who seems very much to be like a voodoo practitioner or a shaman of some sort. Why I can't punch, I have no idea. So my guy Larson, all he can do is kick. Apparently. Now, there are two variations on the types of hits you can have. If you hold the button down, you do a stronger attack. If you flick the button, and on a Genesis controller there was A, B, and C as your buttons. So far, B and C are the only things that I have available to me. If I hit A, it doesn't do squat. Oh, and I have seriously pissed Raven off because she is going to town on me. I think Larson, he was designed to be like a 1920s cat burglar / private eye. When I was checking to make sure the game worked, I did go through the entire prologue that is a really badly constructed graphic, at least by modern standards. And it explains all these characters in greater detail. And yeah, Larson is a former cat burglar from 1920 Chicago. Whoa, except now I'm crawling on the ceiling. Not sure I pulled that off. She can throw me, but I can't throw her. And I am toast. So then you get these final statistics for who did what. So I managed to hit her with 20 wheel shots, or I got hit with 9 throws and 20 wheel shots. And then we could see all the stats for what I did on her. And we only get 2 continues left. So this game does not look like it's designed to offer you a whole lot of flexibility as far as continues go and things like that. Now, in keeping with how this game was reviewed, by the time Game Rankings shut down in 2019, this game held an aggregate score of 62.5%. In 2008, IGN gave the Virtual Console release for the Wii a 6 out of 10 score, criticizing its difficulty to learn play mechanics while praising the game's story, training mode, and inner strength meter. IGN concluded, quote, "It's not likely that many players who've never previously heard the game will have the patience to spend that much time getting to know it." But in 1995, Megazone included this game in their top 50 games in history, summarizing huge characters and heaps of playability, put it up there with Mortal Kombat 2 and Street Fighter 2. And in 2006, IGM ranked the game's finishing moves, which are called overkills, as the best gore effects in video game history. Maybe we'll see a couple of before we are done with this playthrough. So let's see. This guy looks like a Terminator of some sort. I will try him. In 2011, Complex Magazine included on the top 10 most blatant Mortal Kombat ripoffs, but also added that it was, quote, one of the more successful faux MK fighters, and the only thing that sucked was the difficulty, end quote. They also ranked it on their 2012 list of the 25 best Sega franchises they would like to see revisited or revised. So we are playing Blade, okay, and we're taking on Jetta, who we're in a circus environment. I think she's supposed to be an acrobat. Whereas Blade is supposed to be a futuristic secret agent of some sort. And because you're having to play it on the D-pad as opposed to on the control stick, that does make it a lot harder to move your characters around, which was another issue with the 16-bit generation when it came to fighting games. And Street Fighter 2 was the one that really suffered the most on consoles for this, because unless you were able to get a controller that had a joystick on it, if I remember right, I think late in its run, the Super Nintendo had one of those. Unlike when we had the Nintendo Entertainment System and we got the NES Advantage, which had a joystick and it was great. That was one of my that was the controller I went with for most of the games I played because we had a proper joystick on it. All right, now she looks like she's energized a bit, and she's got that defense field. And apparently there's supposedly a plethora of special moves in this game, but I'll be damned if I can figure out how to make them work. Which again, as the reviewer stated, the difficulty in learning how these characters move and what each one can do that does make it a problem. Now you can block. And Jetta wins the contest. But in order to block, you've got to press down and back at the same time, as opposed to what you would have in Street Fighter, which is just you push back. So, let's see if we can do something about this again. Well, that didn't work. Well, if he wasn't a Terminator, but this guy looks like he's a cyborg, so let's try it with him. This is Rax, and Rax is an American cyber kickboxer from 2345 AD. And Jetta is a member of the Russian aristocracy from 1899 AD. She was working undercover as a circus acrobat at the time of her death. She's a revolutionary tampered with her tightrope equipment ahead of a major show in China, and she fell to her death in front of a live crowd. So in a lot of ways, this isn't much different than Saturday Night Slam Masters, which we played yesterday for Sports Saturday. Hope you tune in for that. In that the characters have a lot more capability to them than what you can initially get out of the box. But you're going to have to spend a whole lot of time being able to figure out who can do what. And I've been beaten again. So I can do kind of that pirouette spin, and then she's got one of her own. But again, the issue that a lot of these competing games ran into was that in trying to be so much like Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat 2, they got away from what made those games work so well. And that is that all the movesets, while they can be challenging depending on the characters that you have, for the most part, do not take nearly as long to learn and don't take as long to master as games like this require players to do. And I think that's something that they should have learned from when they had the chance. Because, yeah, you could say it was being more derivative by forcing your game designers to go, well, make me a game that is as close to Street Fighter 2 or Mortal Kombat as you can without being a blatant ripoff of it. And I guess of all the games that came out in this time, this is one of the ones that got closer to both. But at the same time, I think if they made the moves even 10% easier to navigate and the game mechanics 5 to 10% better, this game would have probably been a lot more successful. And also the lack of having a joystick to be able to move around with. And I'm playing this on an Xbox controller, but because this is set up for the Genesis, and the Genesis originally did not have a joystick on its D-pad, you gotta use the D-pad to move everything around. Now, I'm playing this also on the Fusion 3.64 emulator, and I've been able to play some games using the stick. You can certainly calibrate it to do that, but this isn't one of them. So the degree of difficulty goes up even higher. And now I'm playing as a Pharaoh, Ramses III, and even I can't get him to beat this chick. Yeah, she's seriously massacring me here. Now I'm stunned. That strongman's got to be sitting there back there going, dude, you're getting your butt handed to you. And I've been whooped again. And I think that's all of my continues. Yep, so that's game over. So you get 2 continues to try and get through the entire game. That doesn't seem all that helpful. And there goes poor Ramses into the drink, it looks like. But as you can see, the cutscene visuals for now being 30 years old, I mean, this stuff is really, really rudimentary. Which should be a surprise to nobody. So let's see. So Shadow Yamato is a ninja assassin from modern day 1993. She was thrown off the top of her employer's skyscraper before she could publicly expose the murderous actions of her syndicate. So the Eternal Champion has grabbed everybody he wanted that would most likely make up a good game, but his decisions of characters who would be... So he can sling a grappling hook, and he can do a flash kick, which I was not able to do. It looks like he's got a stun gun. And she can do the Chun-Li head hop. So Larson kind of combines a little bit of Scorpion with Guile. He's got the grappling hook. It's everything short of, come here! And I've got a fan. And a 4-punch combo just put me down. And he can punch. That's weird that I wasn't able to even punch with him. But he's got like those, they're not brass knuckles, they're like full-fledged spike knuckles. And Larson wins the contest. So he got hit all of 13 times, and I got hit a lot more than that. Alright, we'll try one more time. Who have we not played with yet? This guy looks interesting. This is Midnight. Midnight is a vampire-like mutant hiding in Vietnam. In his former life, he was a noted British biochemist Mitchell Middleton Knight. He was hired by U.S. forces to spike water supplies during the Vietnam War in 1967 and became exposed to the chemical and was mutated like every other victim. He was killed by a vampire hunter hired by the government before he could create a cure. That sounds exactly like the 1960s to me. Of course, that was well before my time, but to hear my parents talk about it, everybody was like that back in the mid to late 60s. And they didn't even need to take acid or any really strong drugs to be able to pull that off. All right, 3 flash kicks in a row, and I've been stunned, and wow, is Larson completely... I don't know if they have woodsheds in 1920 Chicago, but he just took me behind it something fierce. I don't even think I got one hit in on him. Well, I got him there a couple of times. I can say I actually hit him. Yeah, the only thing I'm able to do at this point is do kicks. Flips the coin. And that was a quick fight. Well, we'll try one more time. We'll see if we can actually win one fight. Let's see. We'll try you. Xavier. Xavier Pendragon was an alchemy student from 1692 who was executed under a false charge of witchcraft during the Salem witch trials. Okay, so he's from my neck of the woods. Xavier definitely has a good way to fight. Hands down, face presented. Oh! Grappling hook to the groin. That's gonna sting. Okay. So I tried that staff slide, and that did something, but nothing major. So if I step on his loafers there, that gave me a chance, but that was as far as I got. And what is this going to be? Oh my God! What? Finishing moves, sudden death. That's a new one. So I totally get what they were saying about how the overkills in this game were certainly unique. I think that's a good one to end it on there, considering this is the last time we'll see Xavier with his head connected to his shoulders. But that, everybody, is Eternal Champions Challenge of the Dark Side version for the SegaCD from 1993. Question 1. Is this a good game? If I'm honest, no, it's not. The controls are super clunky. The story could be interesting, but, I mean, you have to remember, by comparison to Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter 2, this thing was really an ugly stepsister in the bunch. But what really undoes it is the gameplay. That the mechanics are so stodgy that trying to figure out moves is nigh on impossible. I would imagine that the instruction manual that came with this game has got to be at least a meter thick. Because you're going to have to spend... It would probably be like trying to learn how to do calculus, figuring out how all the special moves in this game work. And unlike most fighting games where, like, I can play King of Fighters, or I can play Samurai Showdown, or any game like that, and usually start figuring out special moves within the first 2 to 3 playthroughs of it. But in the meantime, I get the basics down. In a game like this, it would probably take me at least a good couple of hours to learn how to even get one character to work decent enough that I could actually win a fight, let alone 2 fights in succession. Is this a game they could make today? Sure, they probably could. They actually released it on the Wii Virtual Console back in 2007 and then put it on the Sega Genesis Mini Micro Console in 2019. But as I said earlier in the reviews of this game, it is considered one of the franchises that some critics would like to see revisited. And it did have strong sales, and it was popular enough at one point to warrant a sequel, a remake, 2 spin-offs, and various tie-ins. And there was a planned 3rd game that was in the works, but Sega canceled it. That the entire series has been absent from subsequent, like, Sega compilation packs that have come out over the years kind of speaks a lot to how little it seems like Sega has an interest in doing anything with this franchise. And like I said, this is actually Eternal Champions 2 Challenge from the Dark Side, and then Eternal Champions The Final Chapter was supposed to come out on the Sega Saturn, but it was canceled in order to have them release Virtual Fighter instead, of which we profiled that on a previous Suckerpunch Sunday anyway. So, and also, really at this stage, with the way fighting games are, I mean, the market would be open to have something like that come back, especially if it'd be a nice change from all the hero shooters and the glut of those that have been coming out, that a lot of people who criticizing the industry are really sick of seeing. It's almost like they're mining that particular vein for every last bit they can get. So maybe we could have an opportunity to return to classic fighting games. I don't know. But is this going to be one of them? I highly doubt it. I think there's always going to be room for a good fighting game, but at this point, Capcom and Street Fighter have got that market so locked in. And even with Mortal Kombat being reinvented with Mortal Kombat 1, I don't think there's as much demand for it as there was at this time 30 years ago. So, but is it a game I can recommend you try? If you really want an exercise in frustration, go ahead. Again, I'm playing this on the Fusion 3.64 emulator, and if you're looking for a way to get ROMs and things to be able, games to play on emulators, if you don't have access to an original console, the Internet Archive is now the place to go. And all you have to do is go on there and look for the particular stuff you're wanting, and it's not hard to find. So I would recommend you go there above any other sites that offer access to older games. So if you've been enjoying the content, as always, best way to show it, hit the like button. Subscribe if you are new, and ring the bell to be notified of new episodes as they come out. We are going to get back into our revisitation of Metal Gear Solid from 1998 on the PlayStation 1 starting tomorrow, and we'll have new episodes coming out as usual every Monday and Wednesday. And then we will have Sports Saturday and Suckerpunch Sunday next weekend, but since it's episode 50 for both, for Sports Saturday, we're going to start going in a slightly new direction for that series, where we're going to take one game and we're going to see if we can get through a full season of it. And then Suckerpunch Sunday will carry on as it always has, because, again, there's no shortage of fighting games or fighting platform games across the now, 10 consoles at this point that we're able to pull stuff from. So that will not be changing the format of this series anytime soon. Be sure to follow us on social media through Instagram and Threads or on its RetroGate to help spread the word about us so we can continue to build the channel and make it bigger and better. And as always, if there is a game that you would like to see us feature from the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo, Sega Master System, Sega Genesis, or Mega Drive, including the SegaCD or the 32X, SNK Neo-Geo, Nintendo 64, Sega Saturn, Sega Dreamcast, PlayStation 1, or PlayStation 2, leave it in the comments below or drop me a line on social media. It can be any game from those consoles that you want. My name is Ronan. It's been great to spend this Sunday with you. Be safe, be well, happy gaming. We'll see you tomorrow as we head back into the frozen tundra of Alaska and carry on with our playthrough of Metal Gear Solid. Bye.